This review has been brought to you in part by Main Irish Airsoft. Hi, welcome back Oddies Airsoft, and today we're looking at the SLV36, or as everyone will know it, the G36c, and this is the Jing Gong or Jing Jong, whichever way you want to pronounce it, and it's been rebadged and branded by ASG. Now, before I get into this review, my first airsoft gun that I purchased was a Classic Army Pro Line G36c, and I have to say I absolutely loved it as my first purchase. Thought it was awesome. The build quality was fantastic, so the bar was set quite high for me. I know this is a sports line and I had to sort of look at this as a sports line version, so I'm going to get into this review. As always, myself and Mark will don safety wear, eyewear, purely because all airsoft guns should be treated like a real steel version, and you should always have eye protection on when you're playing around or tinkering around, even if there's no battery in it. Just always treat it that it's fully loaded and ready to go. Now, G36c, this is a sports line version. This is a cheap gun. Now, a good while ago, Jing Gong produced the G36c, this particular model, and it was known within the industry as being a solid performer. Main Irish Airsoft, this is where we got this gun. They were stocking the original Jing Gong for years, had no issues with it. It was their go-to gun. It was the gun they would recommend to any young guy starting off for a number of reasons, which we will get into now. And all guns in an airsoft store owners will know this. Guns quality-wise can be judged by their returns. How many guns did they get brought back with issues? And the original Jing Gong sort of just never came back. They never had any issues with it at all, and everyone seemed quite happy with them. So let's get into what this is about. This is an ABS plastic gun, and it's very light, which is great for the new guys starting off in airsoft. When testing the gun, I happened to find myself in a position where I was actually at Red Barn having a day of gaming, and one of my mates, his son was playing and his own gun failed, and he had no other gun with him, no backup, and I happened to have this in the boot of my car, and I said, look, I've no real batteries that have been fully charged, but you can have a lash of it and see how you go. And I managed to get 2 minutes with him in the safe zone at the end of the game, and we'll show that piece of video in a second. But the big thing that he found that really stood out was he was able to carry this because it was light. He's a smallish guy, as most 13 or 14 year olds are. He's a smallish guy, and most of the M4s tend to be a little bit big, and you know, on that reach where they're shouldering it, you'd find them quite awkward and bulky, whereas this sat really nicely for him. So he was very impressed. He thought the range was excellent. He thought the whole setup of the gun was superb. Now this is Daniel. Daniel was using the Jing Gong G36c. So what did you think of it?
Yeah, it was good, but the battery ran out quickly enough.
Yeah, that was my fault for giving you a cruddy battery. But how did you find the range on it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. The fire rate's pretty good too. The problem with the clips is that you have to get the ones specifically made for this. So,
yeah. And come here, listen, how did you find weight-wise? Did you find it very heavy without a harness?
Yeah, it's light enough for me. Like, I couldn't hold the other guns, it was really heavy. But for me, it's going around, it's fine. Yeah.
Brilliant, cheers mate. So starting off with the front is the typical ABS nose, which there's a small little pin that you can take out, which gives you access to the battery section. You can fit an 8.4, which this gun actually ships with an 8.4 with a charger, nickel metal hydride. It can also fit a 9.6, which I would recommend. It just gives you that little bit of an increased rate of fire. And the great thing about it is it's easily reseated. Some guns aren't so easy to put batteries in and out of, or so, you know, under fire in a game, if you go dead, it's an easy swap out. Coming down the body, This is all ABS plastic. There's no metal on this except for the Riz rail at the top, and even then I think that's only in parts. But that's what keeps this gun so light. Typical G36 mag. The mags are very bulky, and this is one thing that kind of put me off staying with the Pro line at the time. The M4 mags slip into pretty much any configuration that you'd be wearing on a vest. You have to be very aware of the type of vest you're wearing when you rock out with a G36, because the mags are twice the thickness, and not only are they twice the thickness, but they also have these loops and hooks and studs on either side which can get caught up on your vest. So, you know, that's why I got rid of mine in the beginning. I just found them all a little bit too awkward. The reason why they have these little hooks here and they have these little nubs here is that you can actually click on extra mags either side of your main mag, so that you can unload and put in the next one for ease of use. The problem with that is the ABS in the mags tends to be quite poor. If you knock them or drop them or give them a little bit of a bang, they tend to snap the nubs off here and they become next to useless. So I kind of wouldn't even bother doing that in the beginning, because it's just can give you some heartache down the line. Ambidextrous trigger selector here, and stock is foldable, and it will lock round. A lot of people will snap these round real fast thinking they're in a COD game. The little hook here, you're meant to actually bring it around and lift to engage. You're not actually meant to slap it in. If you keep slapping it in, you'll break off the hook, and it's not a case of you pulling it out. You have to re-lift again and swivel it around. Good positive lock there. And as I said, all in all, this is a solid performer as a starter AEG, and it really is a starter AEG. Now, I gave this a quick test. The rate of fire was very, very good for what you've got. The range was really, really good, and very, very noticeable how good the range was. Very, very crisp hop unit in here. Hop unit can be accessed through this, you pull back the charging handle, and there's the drum, the typical G36 drum here. Very responsive, does everything, and it doesn't move, which is really, really sweet. Now, a lot of people, again, tend to kind of do this with their charging handle. It's a bit COD-like, sounds good, it's real steel-ish. The problem is this is ABS plastic, and that kind of slapping around is going to see things broken. Now, I've been kind of singing the praises of this gun, but there are issues. The original Jin Gong that was out years ago, Jin Gong produced the original G36Cs, and they were superb. They were the go-to guns in a lot of stores. For guys starting off, they were just faultless. They didn't sort of break down or let anyone down, and the ABS plastic on them was superb. They just didn't crack or fracture or do anything untoward. Now, if you remember a while back, there was a big shutdown in China where a lot of companies had to roll back their production, and some of them went to the wall. Jin Gong slowed down their production, and ASG were able to bring back the G36C that kind of disappeared off the market for a while. ASG seemed to be really good at that kind of thing, is sourcing out stuff that, you know, was well loved and well liked, but hard to get hold of. The only problem is the ABS plastic in this version is not the same as the original, and the original version was much thicker. Now, I've had the chance to look at an original version that's in Main Irish Airsoft and feel the difference between this and that. And I have to tell you, it's disappointing that the shell of this is not made to the same standard as the original. This is causing a problem. Now, it's not every gun out there. There are batches that are good, and there are batches that aren't so, how we say, well, they're just not cutting the mustard, in fairness. And the problem is, you don't know what you've got until you start using it. Brilliantly, for ASG users, there is a warranty on these guns, so if you do have any issues, you can bring them back under warranty and get them fixed or replaced, which is great from ASG, and I think that's real progressive of them. But the problem is, Mark always said to me, if something goes wrong, if it happens once, it's an occurrence. If it happens twice, it's a coincidence, and if it happens 3 times, it's a trend. And unfortunately, across the interweb, there's too much being spoken about this particular model going wrong for it not to be a trend. And I happened to be in Main Irish Airsoft one particular day. Brendan from Fingal Airsoft, a well-known and well-loved airsoft site in Dublin, he had brought in a number of these models to have as backup guns for his rentals, and his heart has been absolutely broken with the batch that he received because all of them failed. And when I say failed, we're talking about the ABS stock cracking off, fracture lines appearing all through the body, charging handles snapping completely off. And again, it could be, misuse from people not knowing what they're doing, and that's, you have to take that on board. The hook here that holds the stock cracking off, and even as far as the gearbox actually cracking, and inside gearbox issues occurring. I'll come back to it. It's not all batches that's happened to. It just seems to be that the company that ASG are buying this off are not possibly taking much care with their their service of making sure that all guns leaving the factory at the same standard, and that's an issue. And this is where I feel sorry for airsoft stores. An airsoft store will buy in a product based on, they'll bring in one or two of them, test them out. If they seem fairly good, they'll bring in a batch of them. And they're either going to be stuck with a batch or they're going to sell the batch. And hopefully they'll sell them. But the problem is, if they've got a gun that's sort of not living up to its hype, they tend to be shouldered with a lot of stock that they can't shift. Main Irish Airsoft have taken one step further. They've actually taken all their stock that they have from ASG that they bought in, and they've repalleted it and sent it back to ASG and told them to go and sort out the problems. The problems tend to manifest immediately. The day you go out and play with it, they tend to start happening. They're quite instant. So if you've had one of these already and you've been playing with it for a while, chances are you're not going to have any major issues with it, because it did seem to be very definite batches within the shipment that were problematic. Not all of them were a problem, so it does seem a bit like sort of a quality control issue from the company that ASG are purchasing from. Okay, to summarise, this is a cracking gun. For a guy starting off in airsoft, I don't think you should look anywhere else, to be honest with you. Especially if you're a small guy, this is light, it's easy to shoulder, it's easy to carry, the range is fantastic, the rate of fire is more than acceptable. But if you are buying this, look, the bottom line is Jin Gong had a very reputable name, and they still have in many people's eyes, but this particular model, there does seem to be a question mark on certain batches of the gun, not all, and that's been proven quite extensively that there are a number of good batches out there. But if you are in the mood for a G36C and you are considering this model, I would suggest you do all your homework first. And make a very informed decision before you purchase, because you have been warned there are issues with certain batches of this particular model. And ASG, I would advise you to definitely sort of look at your quality control of the guys who are making this, because as I said, the potential is there to have a cracking piece. You're nearly there. It just needs to be fine-tuned to make sure that every batch goes out the same. This has been Oddie's Airsoft. We'll talk real soon. This review has been brought to you in part by Main Irish Airsoft.